Working with spirits is beautiful, exciting, educating, and it is the essence of work as a shaman. However, it can be also very tricky and definitely dangerous. In this video, I will be covering more of an understanding about communicating with spirits and some just general principle, what this looks like and why it's worth having it. But then there will be a second video that will cover exactly the things that you're supposed to do or you're encouraged to do to make sure that this communication is done in a safe way. So first of all, it would be really helpful to understand that everything has a spirit. In shamanism, we consider everything, including a rock, a tree, a water, an animal, a person, a wind, everything is a spirit. Therefore, you could be communicating with so many different types of spirits. There's just so much out there. It's pretty mind-blowing. But if I was going to give a little bit of a structure, I would say that generally speaking, the way we understand the spirit world is that you could be communicating with energies and spirits from the lower world, the middle, and the upper world. And if you are interested in these words and what they are and how to work with them, I will make a separate video. For now, for the purpose of this video, we'll just leave it at this sort of basic idea that it's not really a hierarchy, but spirit have their homes, realms, and realities too. So just to give you some examples, you could be communicating with nature spirits, so elemental, power animals, plant allies, the moon, the sun, a river, a mountain. You could be communicating with spirits of your ancestors, personal spirit guides, we all have them. You could be communicating with deities, fairies, ascended masters, other shamans, spirits of other shamans, heavenly beings, angels, astral beings. I mean, the list just goes on, and each of the big labels that I just gave you, you could even go more granular. It's a really beautiful, diverse world, and we are also spirits. So it's important to know that it's not just us and the spirit world. If you're looking from their perspective, we are also spirits that they're trying to communicate with us. So we are part of the same ecosystem. And regardless the form that they will take, it's mostly about, first of all, agenda they also have, so why they want to communicate with you, and also the strength that they have. For example, are they powerful? Can they help us with something that we need? But also how evolved they are, whether they're coming from the vibration of compassion, of love, or wisdom, or whether they're still perhaps limited in their own perception. Spirit world and our reality, it's not really a separate thing. So we've often referred to lifting a veil when we cross to communicate with spirits, but in fact it's intertwined and there are overlaps, and yes, there are different realms, but in some way they all coexist. When I go for a just simple walk, I am surrounded by spirits. It is not something that I can separate myself from, and it may be that I am not aware of it right now in the moment, or maybe I don't have even the understanding, but it doesn't mean that I'm not part of the spirit world, and you cannot separate yourself from it just because you decide to turn off the switch. What you could do is most likely to turn it up and dial into certain frequencies of communication to hear them or see them, but you cannot just literally take yourself out and say, I don't want to be part of the spirit world. We are part of the spirit world. When I say we're communicating with spirits, you communicate with something that coexists next to you. Having said that, there are special places where this overlap becomes a bit more stronger, significant, and these are the gateways and portals. And for people who are quite sensitive, they may immediately access that communication very, very easily. And you could find these strong places in sacred sites, in important nature places like some waterfalls or caves, places where our ancestors or your ancestors were doing a lot of rituals and ceremonies, so the energy could be really charged in that place. These portals will also open at the very important events as well. So it's not just the location, it's also the event or the intention that is being set. These are the moments where gates are way more wider, and it's much easier for people to access spirit's world even if you are not trained in communicating with them. Usually trained shamans, healers, medicine people will be really well equipped in tools, techniques, or knowledge and experience of how to communicate with the spirit world, and also how to open these portals and gates, even if they're not located in those charged places or at these charged events. In any place, like here in this room, in this particular moment in time, a shaman or a healer would be able to access the spirit world and get the insight, get the information, and get a help. What's worth mentioning here as well is that when we communicate with the spirit world, we usually need to have a reason for doing that, and ideally that would be set with a really good and pure intention. When we reach to spirit world, we bother them, we interrupt daily routine to say, hey, can you come and help me here? It's always good to have a reason why you need that communication and why you need their help, and do that in a very honorable, respectful way. Most spirits are very, very willing to collaborate and partnership with us, and they don't mind. But when it becomes needy, selfish, driven by ego, that's where the problem starts. But I will cover this safety measure in the second video, as I mentioned to you earlier. So I guess in some sort of conclusion, what I'm trying to say is that whether you are passive or active in that communication, the spirit world will still coexist with you. They might actually sometimes reach out to you without you triggering that communication. So it's really a both way thing. It's never just really us and them. We all in that universe, and they might have a message for you, or you may need a help from them. So it's really fascinating in some way, because it's the same way as we occupying this earth as different communities, different races, the same way we occupy the whole universe with all these different coexisting beautiful communities of spirit. All of them individually and as groups will have their own particular personality, they might have their own agenda, they will have their own vibration, and usually they have very complex nature as well. So it's never really that spirits, well, I say never, most of the time it's not like spirits are either just bad or good. Very often they are located somewhere on that spectrum. So you will have very evolved spirits who just resonate and shine that light of love, and sometimes you will have spirits where they are in a different place of the spectrum, and as helpful as they can be, they can also get upset or decide to give you a lesson because you didn't treat them with respect, or maybe they will say that's not really what at the moment it's useful to them. The spirit world is so diverse that it's hard to put everything into one box. But not to create that naive perception, I do want to also point out that there are spirits who can be dangerous and who don't like humans. In fact, they live off human energies. So when I have this passion and excitement for working with the spirit world, it does not mean that I'm not aware and trying to give you the warning that this is not something that you just walk into it and free flow. You really need to have some basics to know whether you are communicating with something that has the best interest for you, or perhaps the work that you're doing. You shouldn't be just going and searching for any spirit or entity randomly. It also requires an effort from the spirit world to communicate with us. It's not just us, you know, struggling here. And if we come out just for a moment from our very egocentric human perspective, let's think about what spirit needs to do in order to communicate with us. They very often have to manifest in a form. They have to perhaps take a different vibration to create a sound. They have to shift their reality dimension, all of that. It's kind of works both ways. And of course, as I said, Some spirits will be more evolved or skilled, and some spirits will be even very lazy to communicate with people. I mean, they don't work with humans. A lot of fairies, they have really withdrawn from the partnership with humans. And yes, there will be still some that are very curious and they want to sort of regenerate or recover that relationship with us. But a lot of fairies will be just either not bothered or even annoyed by us, and that's kind of adds the spiciness to that work as well, because it's not as simple as we just knock at the spirit world and they just all there for us. I think it's like with anything else, we need to create a really strong bond, collaboration. We need to gain trust. We need to show the spirit world that we are reliable. It's pretty much like in the human world when you create a new partnership or friendship. It requires a time, it requires trust on both sides. Spirits, just as humans, they are very complex in nature and they need to be approached, examined and understood on the individual basis, just as we would do with every person out there. We would treat them individually. We would understand what their motivations are, what they like, what they dislike. As much as we have some general knowledge, we should always approach that communication with a bit of a alert, open heart, but also carefulness and definitely respect. Ultimately, the spirit communication is about transferring the energy, and information is energy. Healing is energy. So through that collaboration, they may want to transfer the energy so they can heal themselves or they can heal their world. It's really about coming from the perspective that we are all one, and when we all help each other and when we all live through it together, the world just constantly getting better and better, not just for us but also for them. So yes, spirits will be offering their helping hand and their wisdom and their time is exactly the same way as we attend other humans and try to help them, the same way as we care for animals, the same way as we want to care for our plants. It really comes most of the time from a place of love and compassion and care. And it does not mean that we are not connected directly to the source. It just means that we are experiencing life and the creator through working together and really learning about each other. So just as I'm learning things about different cultures when I travel around the world, I do want to learn different things about spirit world, because it's all part of the creation. So it's almost like I'm becoming richer also by learning and understanding different realities and perspectives. And I think through that I can become better, and if I can become better and help perhaps the world to be better, then also I'm adding to that pod of general feeling of love and health on a larger ecosystem. And I feel like that's the perspective of the spirit world. Most spirit want to help us and want to give us helping hand, want to share their wisdom, especially if they're coming from the same agenda and perspective of wanting to increase vibration in the world, of wanting to get closer and closer to the source. And we are all love. And not all spirits understand that, of course. I'm not saying every spirit will have the same purpose, but a lot of them do. And you know how it is. The strength is in numbers. So if we can work together, why not? If we can help each other, why not? So if you are stepping onto shamanic path, I would say don't be afraid of working with the spirit world, but be cautious. Be cautious, know how to do it, learn, educate yourself, practice, and you can really make a change. And you will see that by working together, we can make a greater impact for better. We can make a much more positive impact much faster. The experience itself, it's really beautiful. You can learn a lot about yourself too, and about the divine. Communicating with spirit is beautiful. It will change your life once you embrace it, especially if you're stepping onto shamanic path. But I would say that you have to be cautious, and you need to know how to do it, and you need to be taking things gradually with the spirit world. So again, don't let your ego come through, and don't think that you're doing this to be more powerful or to be different. This is really not about that. You need to have a really right intention in your heart, because spirits will know, and many of them will be able to read your heart. It's really important to come forward from a really right place. And there are a lot of tips of what to do and what not to do, and how to make that communication safe, but I will cover that in the next video. That will be sort of like a part 2. So please check the other video if you haven't watched it yet, because in that video I will be going a little bit more into detail of what to do, what not to do, and which spirits to reach out, especially if you are starting to open yourself to other realms. Lots of love. Thank you so much for listening. Always stay present, joyful, healthy, and I hope we see each other soon in the next video. Bye.